right, so thank you for the introduction and thanks for having me. This is definitely a very unique opportunity. I'm usually used to speaking to rooms full of engineers, so I'm doing my best to not be that way tonight. But I'm excited to talk to you about some of the work that I've been doing as a part of my PhD here at the University of Colorado. What we've been doing is scraping and analyzing public data to understand the impact of oil and gas development on groundwater here in the Front Range. And that's definitely a hot button issue. So if you are, sorry, hold on, still technical difficulties. Wait, I got it. Okay. So if you're familiar at all, I know they're having like town halls over in Broomfield about what they should be doing about oil and gas development. Our project is called the Air Water Gas Project. We're an NSF funded project, so we have really no skin in the game. And we're doing our best to, I guess, study this data and give you guys just the cleanest cut of what's going on. So here in Colorado, we definitely should be concerned about our groundwater quality. As you all know, we live in a high desert. This is just a nice view of the state. You can see our different oil and gas basins. And we rely heavily on groundwater. So there's over 320,000 groundwater wells throughout the state. And a lot of that overlaps with where we extract oil and gas. So we have over 66,000 active oil and gas wells. We're the 6th largest gas and 7th largest oil producing state in the U.S. And a lot of, I guess one of the biggest areas of conflicts is here on the Front Range. There's the Wattenberg field north of Denver, and that has some really intense drilling. And as you all know, populations are expanding, water resources are being used up. So that's what we're concerned about. And when the project started back in 2012, we went looking for data. So thankfully we had a few places to look. The first being fracfocus.org. I don't know if you are familiar with this site, but essentially it's a place where oil and gas regulators voluntarily upload the chemicals that they use during the fracking process. So that was established in 2011, and our grant began in 2012. However, this site wasn't really designed for data analysis. Everything was sequestered in individual PDFs. There were no bulk downloads. There were lots of automation blockers. So they kind of made it purposefully, I guess, opaque. And then we also could look to state-supplied data. Every state that has a decent amount of oil and gas development has an oil and gas governing body. And these also vary by state. Some states will charge you money for oil and gas data. Some will give it to you for free. Some will record lots of stuff. Some won't record anything. But we're lucky here in Colorado. We have the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, or the COGCC. However, they're probably one of the best states that provides the most data. However, very few bulk downloads, convoluted interfaces, lots of PDFs, varies. Like I said, it varies between states, and lots of poor quality data. So definitely some hurdles to overcome. But thankfully, we hired a really good data manager from the start, Troy Burke. He wrote a bunch of Ruby scripts and kind of attacked these websites full on. And he was able to grab over 2.9 million records from FracFocus and over 300,000 well records from Colorado, New Mexico, Montana, Utah, and North Dakota. And we made that publicly available on data.airwatergas.org, so you can do intelligent queries and bring bulk downloads of oil and gas data, which should be easy to analyze. And then I just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the findings that we've been able to, I guess, things that we've been able to find with this data that we've grabbed. This is a study by Jessica Rogers, a fellow PhD student here at the University of Colorado. She looked at 659 chemicals in the FracFocus database and was able to find chemicals that lasted a long time in the subsurface, traveled quickly, and were particularly dangerous to human health. So she could put a lens on all those chemicals and identify 15 that have what we call increased exposure potential. So you can see if you were testing for those chemicals in drinking water wells, that'd be valuable to know. And this is a study by Owen Sherwood, another researcher on our project. He found that, I guess Jessica and I collaborated on this study, but we found that there were 42 drinking water wells contaminated with methane that came from oil and gas drilling here on the Front Range. One of the interesting things we found, there's really no change in the rate of contamination since we've been drilling these horizontal wells. So that was one of the, I guess, twists to the study. And then this is a study that actually came out today that I published, where I was looking at indicators on oil and gas wells to see how many of those have problems. We were able to identify 270 right here on the Front Range north of Denver that have problems and 46 that are at a high risk of causing those problems. So I think I'm getting close to being out of time, and I didn't want to miss this slide. As I was saying, this is a really unique opportunity for me. I'm not usually in front of a lot of data geeks, so I have questions for you, really. Our grant is ending. Where should we put our data? You know, we're running out of money. This website will disappear. A lot of people find it valuable. I will graduate, and no one will scrape this data. We think it's valuable. Where could we take it? Ideas for more sophisticated analyses. I've done a really simple logistic regression on some of the stuff that I've done, but I know that a lot of people here have a lot more experience with more advanced techniques, so I'd love to talk to you about that. And then along that line, any other interesting tools that would be useful. And then finally, we have a huge problem with image-based PDFs. There's so many image-based PDFs out there. We could have so much more data if we could scrape those. And if anyone here scrapes image-based PDFs, I would love to talk to you more. So that's what I got. Thanks.
That was fantastic. Any questions?
You can use this one.
Oh boy.
It was really just a quick comment. There's
Sure.
State and city open data portals that would probably really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. Should I repeat that for the webcast?
Yeah.
Okay, there are state and city open data portals that we should take our data to. Cool.
Hi. Hey, how do you determine if a well is at a risk or high risk? And are you contacting the well owner or local authorities to let them know there's a problem?
Great question. So the way that we do that is by a rubric that we call surface casing pressure. So that has surface casing is a term that's often used by the oil and gas industry. A casing is just a pipe. It's just a steel pipe. So when they build these wells, they install what they call a surface casing that goes beneath a drinking water aquifer. So the regulations in the state require oil and gas operators to build these pipes deeper than the deepest drinking water aquifer. And then they'll install a production casing inside of that where all the oil and gas should come out through. So what we're looking at is anytime there's a problem with that production casing, or if the cement around the production casing is faulty, gas will leak into the annulus between that production pipe and the surface casing pipe. And if that well has surface casing pressure, then we know that it's not operating the way that it was originally installed. So I was able to get records for surface casing pressure from the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and we have contacts there. So we did identify those wells, and we told them about them. But I think that they're well aware. They're the ones that request those tests. So those wells need to be fixed. They need to be gone back into and fixed. So not all of them have been, but we did the best we could. So yeah. Oh, and then the high risk wells, those have those are older wells. So a lot of these old legacy wells were built before modern regulations. So if it was built in like the 70s, people weren't drinking out of the deepest groundwater area, so they didn't require as strict of building regulations. So those really old wells that develop pressure are the highest risk wells.
You mentioned, I guess, keeping easy access to the data. If you own rights to the code, maybe open source the data, the code that you do have, in particular the PDF to text generation.
So we did do that, yeah. So we have uploaded all of the scraping scripts online. These interfaces change a lot, but I mean, if you know Ruby, you can figure it out. So.
Who else?
Just a comment on where to put the data.
Sure.
Department of Energy has a program called openenergyinformation.org.
Okay.
And that is envisioned as being an energy database going on in perpetuity. So,
okay.
Openei.org.
All right. Thank you very much.
Can we repeat the website?
Openei.org. I should definitely repeat. I'll probably have to watch this video later to find these. So.
Any other comments or questions or answers?
Sure.
We're all being super helpful. Have you offered it back to CDPHE? I know that they're working on being better at tracking environmental contaminants.
Okay.
I work the health side of things, and so they're currently planning on better mapping houses that are over the heights, et cetera, et cetera. So I would offer it back to CDPHE. They're trying. Remember, we're
Cool.
people.
All right, Colorado Public Department of Public Health, right? And Environment. All right, thank you very much. That's another great resource.
Just a quick clarifying question.
Sure.
Are you talking about reading images from PDF or are you reading tables?
We'd like to get numbers off of them.
I think there's a tabulizer package that does this.
All right.
I have never used it. I just know that there is one.
Cool.
So like so you can like plug it in and then do manipulate through like files. So it depends on your image quality, I think.
Yeah. All right, thank you very much.
I had no idea there was an art plugin for that. That's awesome.
So what was the name of that? The R tabulizer?
Tabulizer.
Tabulizer. All right, cool. Thank you.
A quick question about your findings.
Sure.
Is your result can be applied to predict like a risk for future well development? Like how is that relevant to the current brownfield well development activity?
Yeah. That's a great question. That's definitely somewhere we could take this. We haven't really taken it there yet, but we do know, like for instance, one of the things that I found with my logistic regression is that horizontal wells and deviated wells are more readily develop this surface casing pressure metric than vertical wells. So there are things that we could use, and I guess we could look at the way the well is constructed and things like that to potentially come up with a predictor, and that would be something that I'm interested in, but I'm graduating this summer. But yeah, I'd love to see someone take it there eventually. That's a great idea.
I think I saw one more question, but let that one in. See how we shifted this on me?
Right.
Just a real quick comment.
Sure.
You might look at OpenCV.
OpenCV?
For your image analysis. And there's, you might look at PyImage search. Just do a
PyImage search? Okay. I'm just recording these for me later. So, I'm more familiar with Python than anything. So if that's through, yeah. PyImage search? Okay. Thank you very much. There's one question up here in the front row.
In the meantime, I want to thank you all for being so collaborative. This is really awesome, and this is part of why I love Analyze Boulder.
Just curious on the size and number of attributes of the data that you collected.
Size and number?
Number of attributes.
Attributes?
Yeah. So what are you doing prediction on?
I'm not if Troy were here, he could give you that number. I don't know. For every well, I think we had something like, in Colorado alone, we had almost like 3 million well documents. And then as far as the attributes, I couldn't even fathom again. It's a lot. I don't know. So
Awesome.
Sorry, I wish
Thank
you
you
were humble.
so much for being here with us. Thank you for your
Yeah, no, thank you very much. This is great.
All right, up next we have our co-op talk with Becky Boone and Jordan Mann. And you guys are both
Whoa.
Oh.
I'll need one for questions.
Okay,
We'll get it
I'll
back.
give you mine, yeah. Hi, my name is Becky.
And my name is Jordan, and we're going to talk tonight about co-op energy. And when we're talking about co-ops, we're talking about housing cooperatives. So housing cooperatives consist of a group of people that share resources. And Becky and I live in a housing co-op called the Masala Co-op with 15 people. And when we talk about energy, we're actually not talking about free energy readings.
We're going to talk about natural gas, water, and electricity. And we're also going to talk about how we try to use this data to contribute to changing public policy, local policy. And Boulder recently passed an ordinance to increase the formation of new co-ops. This was a very contentious community conversation, and there's so many different levels of this. All we're going to talk about is how we tried to use some data sets to affect the perspective of our community around this issue. And we thought maybe the energy angle would really resonate with people because a lot of people in Boulder identify as environmentalists.
So we had a hunch that cooperatives use less energy per person, but we had to collect the data. So we reached out to 6 co-ops in Boulder, and we asked them to send us their energy bills for the past few years. So each of the bars here is one of the co-ops in Boulder and their annual per capita electricity consumption. The blue dashed horizontal line is the average for all of those co-ops, and the red bar here is the Colorado average. And what we found is that we use about 1/4 of the amount of electricity as the Colorado average in co-ops. We use about 1/3 as much natural gas, and we use about 1/4 as much water. So this data was pretty static, and we were looking to do something a little more dynamic. So what we did was we created a co-op energy dashboard where people who lived at the co-ops could look at their energy consumption on a monthly basis compared to the Colorado average. And so we had collected all this data and analyzed it and created visualizations, and we shared that with the city council, planning department, community members, and city staff members. And at this point, you're probably thinking, like, for sure they're going to pass the co-op ordinance right now. Like, they have the data, you know, it's this environmentally conscious city, and they're going to make an objective decision based on this fantastic available data.
And I guess surprisingly to us, the data wasn't enough. We needed people to share their narratives. And I just want to share this quotation from a really good interview called Making Data Speak, which is basically humans understand the world best through stories and narratives. One of the best methods for exchanging information is building a story to tell. So we really needed community members to show up in front of the board, council, their neighbors, and talk about this. So we have two examples here of where that was successful. The data one at the top is from City Councilman Aaron Brockett. He got the data. He's actually a programmer. So he was like, yeah, it's great data. It shows co-ops improve the sustainability of the community. The second one, we don't have a quote from someone excited about the narrative around this because we weren't able to really communicate that very well on the community level. Instead, we have somebody from planning board talking about that the testimony tonight from people who are on co-ops was really inspiring. This is something based on housing justice and social justice. So the narratives really resonated with him.
So we had the data and we had the narrative, and City Council passed a co-op ordinance, which is awesome for us. So the question we have now is, okay, can co-ops save the climate? Nope, they can't. Becky and I have a fake pie chart that totally proves it. Remember that pie charts are for fake data and other charts are for real data. And we're just one tiny slice of the pie here. And that's why we need people like the people who are here tonight who are passionate about energy and passionate about the environment to add their slice with the projects that are important to them. And lately, people have been getting really involved in politics. And the reason for this, in part, is that we have a president who's been passing a lot of executive orders that look like this. And that's important to keep the pressure on nationally, but it's also important to keep the pressure on locally.
So we just wanted to share some of our lessons learned, which is our local politicians are very accessible. You can email them, share your data, but also include the narrative, which we weren't as good at. And we're always looking for new projects and people to work with, so find us afterwards and maybe we can find something to collaborate with.
Thanks. All right, if it's hard, it's for Becky, and if it's easy, I'll handle it.
So on one of your slides, or I guess there's 3 of them, you sort of said the ratios that you guys do better in co-ops than the average Boulder house. I was a little bit curious, do you have any idea why the electricity ratios are so different from the natural gas ratios? The water one kind of makes sense to me because everybody still showers for the most part. But I'm a little bit curious about why the natural, do you have any hunch as to whether the natural gas and electricity are so far different from each other?
Sure. So one thing to keep in mind is that our sample size here is 6 co-ops. So the characteristics of the houses that we're living in are going to influence this a lot. And a lot of the houses that we get, because we're going on the cheap, they don't have the best insulation and they're heated by gas. So we're likely to be in older houses, and I think that's a big part of it. Making updates to things like lighting, electricity consumers is a little bit easier than fixing the envelope of a house. Oh, and sorry, the question was, why is there a difference between natural gas and electricity consumption in terms of the ratio of energy saved?
So maybe as a follow-on to this, do you imagine telling the story of how you might improve energy efficiency in co-ops and generally speaking, And for example, how we might charge any sensors at the local level. Have you thought about that at all?
So the question was, how can we improve the narrative around this? Is that?
So how do you improve the narrative, but also how do you take it to the next level and say, what are the improvements we can make?
Right.
Understand.
That's a really great question. So how do we improve the narrative? What are the improvements we can make to actually make this more impactful? So that was the idea around this energy dashboard. We didn't have a lot of time, so we kind of glossed over many, many details. One of the idea was like maybe different co-ops would take a look at this and get a little competitive and find ways to do that. Like it might spur that part of it. Improving the narrative, honestly, because of so many negative perspectives, like a lot of people are like, would you want 15 people living next to you? It's kind of hard to fight that with like environmentalism. So like there's just like this mismatch a little bit of what we were trying to say with people's main concerns around co-ops.
I'm going to throw out a comment, hopefully this is
Yeah.
working. So I just signed up for a free online class from this place called Acumen, ACUMEN, and it's called Storytelling for Change, and it's a leadership group.
Nice.
I can post that on the website.
What's a co-op, and what was the issue before the city council?
Okay, so co-ops, what we're talking about here are a collection of people who are sharing a house. So in this case, there's 15 of us where Becky and I live, and we share one home. There's 11 bedrooms, and the idea behind it is that if we have people sharing resources, we'll use less energy, and in terms of time, we can do things like share meals, so you cook one night a week instead of 7. The issue with the city council is that in Boulder, we have an occupancy limit of 3 people per house, which is way less than 15. So we had to convince them to create a special exception for people who are living intentionally, who are creating commitments with each other in the community to be good neighbors and to allow these to exist. Question, what was co-ops? We're doing this like sort of like Jeopardy style. First. It's the answer and then the question.
Just a real quick comment. You might think about adding noise to your dashboard, because if you can show your noise is no more than your neighbors, I don't know how they could really speak up.
Comment was we should add some sort of decibel meter to show our noise. Becky.
I was thinking, I thought you meant noise in the data.
Oh, I thought you totally meant like actual noise, right?
Wait, I would just like to say I love that because there's actually data that the city has about noise ordinance. Like, so when people violate that, unfortunately, and I requested this data last year, so if all of y'all requested this too, that would be beautiful. You can request the city to release open data, and that's some of the data sets the police department doesn't want to open up.
Ironically, last month we had the city analytics and open data person come talk.
Oh, was that Ron?
No, Julia Richards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I was just wondering about clarification on the number of people in a house. You said 3, but you really mean 3 unrelated people, right?
Yeah, so the question was, do you really mean 3 unrelated people? And that's correct. So if you have a family of 15 people, feel free. But if you're unrelated, it's a family plus 2 is the rules.
Also, family is kind of an arbitrary definition.
Very true.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm actually curious if you guys normalize this by person. So clearly the units that you're using are households, but how does this change?
Yeah.
It is per capita. Yep, sorry. Yeah, we're looking at per capita energy consumption.
Okay. Any other questions? Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Oh, wait, we have one more. All right.
One more thing. I live in a co-op in LA, and one thing I would say would be an impactful statistic would be how many people bike or take public transit, because I think a lot of people are worried about the parking issue.
Yeah, so this was the comment was statistics around biking and public transit. There's a lot to go into there, so I'm not going to get into all of it, but yeah, I think that in general we tend to bike and take public transit more. At the same time, I think people have a lot of entitlement about like how the streets, which are everyone's property, should be for them and their own personal cars. I don't know how I feel about that.
Ending on a bike rant.
Go bikes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So our last speaker of the night is Todd LaWall, and we actually snagged him from a Python meetup, and then made him turn a 45-minute talk into 5. So thank you, Todd.
Good evening. My name is Todd LaWall. I hack on Python for my day job, and I hack on electronics on the nights and weekends. And there's occasions where I like to mash the two together and help me answer questions. My question is my energy bill. I spend way too much money on electricity and gas. In fact, I'm that red bar in their presentation. But I don't feel like I'm getting what I'm paying for. The rooms in the summer are too hot and too cold in the winter. As long as the AC unit lives, it's not going to be replaced because I'm in a rental agreement. My variables come down to this. The dependent variable is my energy bill. I'm trying to optimize this. The independent variables are split into two categories. Those I can change and those I can't. Obviously, sunshine is something I can't change. The one that shares the both is the human activity. I can change what I can do, but I can't always stop my kids from trying to heat the outdoors. In case you didn't know, humans suck at reliability. I know this because I've spent the last 17 years of my career working in automation. Hard measurements, timely basis, several zones. If I have to do this myself, I'm never getting the data I need. Certainly not reliable data. So it comes down to building sensors. The Internet of Things has begun to come of age. Most, though, of the solutions available today, the commercial solutions that you could go buy, are either $150 or more per sensor, or if they're cheap, they come with a little LCD that, sure, you can read, but you are back to square one. You're reading the data and not the computer. There's a chip called the ESP8266. I have several here for afterwards if you want to see them. It's a game changer. It came out 2 years ago, and it provides Wi-Fi along with a microcontroller. If you've ever heard of Arduino, it's programmable in the Arduino environment, but you've tacked on Wi-Fi. When I say cheap, it's cheap. It's $2.50 a piece. I threw Nest on here because that's just basically kind of the high end. It's somewhat a bad example because you wouldn't put a Nest thermostat in every room, but if you were trying to collect data automatically, that's one unit you could. One of the problems with that is it's opaque where it sends the data. The ESP8266 on a per node basis comes down to about $6 per node. And as far as spouse approval factor for my harebrained schemes, that goes down exponentially with linear cost. Okay, so we have sensors. Where do we send that data? There's several really good online sites. Initial State is one of them, Fant.io, data.sparkfun.com. However, for time and flexibility, I decided to write my own server. I was able to learn some about it in the Cherry Pie framework in Python. And in about 215 lines of code, I was done. Storing it off into a SQLite database that stores basic information. I didn't need a server for the database. And I can pull this data out using IPython Notebook and Plotly to chart. So let's look at the data. I have every sensor sending data every 5 minutes. 2 pieces of information, the temperature and the battery voltage. Temperature is the only thing I care about for the main question. Battery voltage is kind of a secondary thing for me to know when I need to go change the batteries for each node, but it's also provided some other interesting data we'll see here in a second. Okay, this is a typical 48-hour period. You can see, if you've ever looked at weather underground, you see the natural rise in daily temperature. And the house tracks along with that, but in a much lower range. One of the things I love about data is graphing it and seeing the anomalies and going, what the heck is that? You can see several anomalies in this one post, which was really kind of interesting. The spikes are things like my garage door being open so that I could shovel snow. The other one over there is my daughter's curtains were open and the sun was hitting the sensor. I woke up one morning and of course, being addicted to data, I looked at my phone where I have this chart and I saw that my son's room had spiked in temperature. I went in and there he is curled up in front of the space heater. But you also start seeing things like, what the heck is this black spot up there? Why do I have a gap here? Well, it comes down to how I'm charting the data and interpolation points from when data is missing. The secondary data study is battery. With this, I'm able to see how long does a pair of batteries last on, waking up for 2 seconds, taking a measurement, sending it, and then going back to sleep for 5 minutes. A pair of batteries will last about 3 months with that schedule. A friend of mine has asked me if I wanted to change that to a 10-minute schedule and see if it doubles the battery life. I've also learned with my outside node that alkaline batteries really, really hate the cold, a lot more than you would think. They die once they get below freezing as far as reliability goes. My aha moments, collecting data isn't hard. There's a torrent of data that's coming. Doing something with it is. For me, trying to figure out what I was actually going to show and how I was going to show it was the biggest problem I had. And my biggest thing is DIY IoT is possible and very much worth doing.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you, Todd.
Did your Internet of Things break yesterday with the S3 outage with everyone else?
Very good question. Did my internet things break yesterday with the internet outage? I have a very interesting perspective on cloud because I came from a cloud company that failed. And buy me a beer and I'll discuss more of that. That's actually a funny story. No, it didn't because I'm sending all the data to my own service on a computer within my house. Part of the reason I did that was all for that reason, but also for the reason that I have flexibility now to send it to the different services and try them out individually. But it's a good question because with the Internet of Things, as you go to employ them, one of the biggest problems is connectivity. When that connectivity is gone or spotty, you're missing data. And so how do you solve that? How do you deal with that? Do you have a local server that you push to and then it uploads when it gets connectivity and ensures that you have at least the data cache? These are designs that you're going to have to think about when you're dealing with an IoT infrastructure.
Next question.
So I was kind of curious, you talked about your optimization problem being to consume less energy. And I'm wondering if the data you collected helped you to do that, either by changing behavioral patterns or the systems that you're using to heat or cool your house.
Okay, so the question is, was I able to use the data to actually change behaviors or change the optimization? The answer is yes and no. It's a much harder problem than I thought it was. The whole point of gathering this data was to see what can I do. And actually, some of the strategies that I'd heard about, the furnace guy had told me, turn on the furnace fan throughout the day. Just leave it going. It burns less than a 60-watt light bulb. And it'll mix the air constantly and keep it to where it's more even. I have not seen evidence of that. So that was one strategy we tried. It didn't work. I've also learned that there's other things I need to start gathering, like on my thermostat, I have a node, and I need to instrument that node to know when the fan is on, when it's called for AC, so that I can actually start charting that along with the temperatures.
So sometimes when you're adding on to your house, you're finishing your basement, cities will require you to get a home energy audit. It really costs about a couple $100, and they come out and spend 3 hours and crawl around and do the door fan test and everything. The problem is, you don't know, and then they'll recommend something that you can't afford, like do all this installation or put in new windows or something like that. And there's really no way to know if what they recommend is of any value. So this would be kind of a nice kit to, rent or sell to people who wanted to do that. Test their house before, and then maybe test it afterwards.
That's a good idea. So, sorry, did I cut you off? So the comment was the energy, the cities usually when you're adding on required energy audit of your house. And this would be a great kit to rent so that you can see data before and after. I hadn't thought about that. That's a great idea. The interesting thing is the 2 bedrooms in the front of my house, my son's bedroom and our guest bedroom, have had new windows put in, and it feels like that nothing's changed. And actually in some of the measurements that I've made in the guest room, because it reaches 55 degrees in the winter, but it's also out on the farthest chain of heat vents. When I've measured it and then put in a sensor, it ended up showing that nothing had really changed with the window. So while we had a leaky window in the first place, we changed it to a really nice champion window, great E value, and nothing changed.
I had a question about the sensor chip. Is it a standalone chip, or does it get mounted on a Arduino board or something?
So it's a module. So let me back up. Is the sensor chip by itself, or is it mounted on board? It comes in multiple different varieties. So you can get it by itself, you can get it mounted on a board, you can get it with the data communication chip, the USB to serial chip that allows you to program it. It comes in a variety of formats, so it really depends on what you want. For me,
I'm gonna have him actually
yes.
come see your kit.
So I brought my kit tonight so that anybody who's curious, you can come talk to me. The other thing is every Tuesday night, I'm at the Solid State Depot Hackerspace. So if any of you are interested in actually implementing some of this, you can come see me there, and we can go into much further detail on how to actually start and program them.
Last question.
Hi, Thomas again from Navigant. I just wanted to say a very interesting presentation, and I was kind of exchanging glances with a couple of my colleagues. We do this kind of work professionally. We go out and we evaluate energy efficiency retrofits, as we were speaking to, in residential and commercial situations, and we use technology similar to this for lighting type evaluations, but I think this is super interesting. Do we let's chat about that kind of stuff afterwards? There are a few of us here, and we can share. There's a whole industry built around something like this, but this is kind of taking it to the next level. It's super interesting things.
Thank you.
I suggest you buy them a beer. All right, any burning questions before I cut it off? All right, Todd will be around. He has his kit, and thank you.